Jurassic World Rebirth hits theaters this week. That's right, somehow my greatest nemesis has returned. So let's do this dance one more time. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of Jurassic World Rebirth, which hits theaters this Wednesday ahead of the July 4th holiday here in the US. And I actually saw this movie last Monday, at the AMC Screen Unseen mystery screening. It's very odd for a studio to screen a movie like this that far in advance, but the official review embargo didn't drop until today. So as a critic, I wasn't able to release my full review until right now, which is odd because if Universal was so confident in this movie that they were willing to let the public see it so early, then you'd think that they would want critics to get their reviews out early, unless they were worried that critics weren't going to give the movie a... Oh. Yeah, okay, now I get it. Jurassic World Rebirth is the fourth Jurassic World film, and the first after the alleged epic conclusion of the Jurassic era that Jurassic World Dominion teased 3 years ago. But it turns out that these movies are better at surviving extinction than the actual dinosaurs. The existence of this film wasn't even announced until about a year and a half ago. It started shooting last June. So with about a year from start to finish, my hopes that this would be a fully formed movie at all were pretty low. But ultimately, I think that Jurassic World Rebirth is a return to form in some ways for the franchise, and also a maddening continuation of what I didn't like about this series in other ways. So let's start with the positives. Let's get the good stuff going first. Getting Gareth Edwards to direct this film was a very good idea. He has a great handle on cinematic language, and I think that this is the best looking Jurassic film since, I would argue, the original back in 1993. It's shot on film, the dinosaurs have scale, and Gareth Edwards knows how to execute exciting action sequences. He makes the dinosaurs look cinematic again. It's not just digital creatures running around, and I appreciate that. I really do. Once the action scenes and the big sequences from this movie are clipped out as individual videos on YouTube, I think that they're going to give the impression that they are part of a much better movie than the one that they're actually in. For example, when I was a kid reading Michael Crichton's original book, there was a great sequence involving a T-Rex chasing Dr. Grant and Tim and Lex on a raft down a river, and it remained really the last scrap of that book that hadn't really been put into a movie yet. And Gareth Edwards does that sequence, and he does it justice in the movie. And there are a few others in the film that are way more exciting than the mostly bland action of the last three movies in particular. It's for lack of a better word, it's a reverence for the franchise's roots. And I think that makes this the most tolerable for me of the Jurassic World movies. In my out of the theater reaction, which I did as a YouTube short, which is something that I'd never really done before, I said that this was the Jurassic World movie that I would least mind rewatching. And I still stand by that, which I suppose means that I think it's the best movie in the Jurassic World franchise because of Edwards' approach. His approach to this franchise really gave this movie the makings of a great Jurassic film. Unfortunately, as seems to be tradition, the movie is also let down by some exceptionally uninspired writing that I think sucks a lot of the drama out of the sequences that Edwards is staging. Going into this film, a lot of people were asking me if I was excited that David Koepp, who co-wrote the original Jurassic Park and also wrote The Lost World back in 1997, was returning to write Jurassic World Rebirth. And I said, no, I'm not really excited because those movies were about 30 years ago, and I've seen a lot of the other movies that David Koepp has written since then. I mean, I love his work on the first film, but I'd argue that as a writer, he hasn't really produced a great script in over 20 years. And unfortunately, that kind of bears out in the final product. The characters in Jurassic World Rebirth aren't bad necessarily because they're really not even interesting enough to suck. They're placeholders who exist to take up screen time between shots of dinosaurs. Scarlett Johansson plays a mercenary named Zora Bennett who's hired to go to another dinosaur island so that she can lead a team to collect blood samples in order for a pharmaceutical company to develop a cure to all kinds of different diseases. Jonathan Bailey is the dinosaur expert who's going to lead them around the island. Mahershala Ali is a boat captain, and Rupert Friend is the pharmaceutical executive. And because he is a pharmaceutical executive, he's not going to be the sleazy corporate character that we see in every Jurassic World movie. I mean, that's not going to happen. Now, that's not just a summary of their characters in the movie. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's a scene in the first act where Scarlett Johansson and Mahershala Ali sit down and talk about their backstories. And I could feel their boredom. And it's not really their fault because it feels like the movie's boredom at having to go through this obligatory ritual of trying to give these characters backstories, but not caring enough to really write anything interesting. And a lot of people respond to my reviews saying, I don't care about characters in movies like this. I go for the dinosaurs, or I go for the race car driving, or whatever else, and that's fine. But I do, and that's just my taste. I need something of interest other than just dinosaurs, especially because this is the 7th film in this franchise. F1 got away with bland characters because the movie offered me an experience that I hadn't really seen before on screen. And Gareth Edwards does a great job in this movie, but not quite enough to justify the script itself. To be fair, though, even though we've seen dinosaur action before, we haven't really seen most of these dinosaurs before, because the reason this island was never explored in a previous film is because this is the island where InGen sent all of their hideously mutated dinosaurs that resulted from their experimenting and crossbreeding. And so now they've just fully become monsters. This is a monster movie with a few of the familiar dinosaurs sprinkled in, because I think the executives at Universal know that if it's a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie, people want to see a T-Rex. So there is just a normal T-Rex on this island full of mutants. I guess maybe its monstrous mutation was that it had 3 livers or something that we can't see on the outside. And there are a couple of other familiar dinosaur faces like raptors or Dilophosaurus that pop up for a minute or less, but they're really of no consequence. The third act of this movie is humans versus killer mutant dinosaurs. Now, if you recall, the end of Jurassic World Dominion established a world where finally humans and dinosaurs coexist. But it turns out that this premise is still apparently far too interesting for this franchise, because in the years between the two movies, dinosaurs have found that the planet Earth is unsuitable for their needs, and they've all settled near the equator, away from humans. And if you want a fun way to pass the time during the first 20 minutes of the movie or so, count the number of times that we are told that all of the dinosaurs live near the equator now. It's a pretty comical amount. In this new dino-human world, we meet not only Scarlett Johansson and her group of medical mercenaries, but another group of main characters. Yes, there are 2 sets of main characters in Jurassic World Rebirth. The second group is a father and his 2 kids and his daughter's boyfriend who are marooned while sailing near Dinosaur Mutant Monster Island and end up joining the medical team, then kind of splitting off and doing their own thing, and then looping back around toward the end. It kind of feels like David Koepp accidentally left his draft of another movie in the middle of the script about the dinosaur medical people, and then he just decided to kind of roll with it and not really merge them together and just make 2 movies at once. I will say that these characters are not as poorly written as the ones in the other Jurassic World movies. They didn't actively annoy me, but I also don't think that they're really written at all. It felt to me like the cast was sleepwalking through the movie because nobody gets to say or do anything that's that interesting. The best and most frustrating thing about Jurassic World Rebirth is that of all the Jurassic World movies, I think this one had the shortest path to being a really, really good movie. First of all, it's 2 hours and 13 minutes long, which makes it the second longest Jurassic movie behind Jurassic World Dominion. If they could have cut the movie down by about 15 to 20 minutes, then I think that you could have had a really engaging, high-speed action film, even if you didn't really change that much about the characters. The other thing is, if David Koepp, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here, had had a little bit more time to work on the script, or if they brought in a talented co-writer, or if the movie had had maybe more than a few months of official pre-production, I think that this could have been a substantially better film. But when you announce your movie in January, you cast your lead in March, and you start shooting your movie in June, a year before it's supposed to be in theaters, it seems obvious that devoting time to getting the script in shape and getting the characters right isn't really the focus here. I mean, I think that Universal was so focused on getting this movie out in theaters this summer that they may have squandered their first real shot at returning this franchise to greatness. In other words, and I've used this quote with other Jurassic World movies, the executives were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should. This could have been a great movie, and they do get part of the way there. I just wish it had had more time to get there. We all know that Gareth Edwards can make a great monster movie, and this proves that he has the ability to make a great Jurassic World movie. His approach is great. The cinematography from John Mathieson is great. The score from Alexandre Desplat I thought was very good. I really loved everything that Gareth Edwards and his team brought to the movie, but it just sort of gets crushed under the blandness of all the Jurassic World baggage that I think comes from the people in charge at Universal. They are milking this cash cow so vigorously that I think they're in serious danger of sucking it dry. And I don't think it would have made much difference if a Jurassic World movie hit theaters this summer versus next summer, or this summer versus at the holiday season, to really give Gareth Edwards time to work on this and to give David Koepp more time on the script. I'm really torn on this movie, and I didn't expect to be there, to be honest. There's a lot to like, but I think that stuff makes the stuff that isn't great even more glaring. In some parts, it is the best dinosaur/Jurassic stuff that we've gotten since 1993, so I can't really discount that, but it's also hard to ignore the bad script and often lifeless acting. When I'm trying to rate something or decide what it's going to get on my personal scale, the question I always ask myself is, would I watch this again right now? And I think that, honestly, I would probably watch Jurassic World Rebirth right now for the good parts, even though there's a lot that I didn't like. So when I'm looking at my own personal rating, this gets a begrudging "it's fine," and Gareth Edwards gets all of the credit for that. I mean, he has seemingly achieved the impossible. He made a Jurassic World movie that I don't hate, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to like this movie more than I did. That's generally the reaction with Jurassic World movies when they hit theaters. I have been labeled a Jurassic World hater. It is a label that I have worn on my chest for 10 years now, but I think the one thing that we can all agree on, whether you like these movies or you don't like these movies, is that at least this one isn't about locusts. So those are my thoughts on Jurassic World Rebirth. What do you think? Will you be heading out to see it in theaters as we approach this July 4th holiday weekend? Let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Tomorrow, I will have Charts with Dan, where we look at the previous weekend's box office and the big opening of F1, as well as previewing what Jurassic World Rebirth needs to do in order to fall in line with the other films in the franchise. I'd love to have you come and talk box office with me, but even if you don't, I appreciate you watching this video. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.